Okay, can you guys see the PowerPoint now?
Yep, looking beautiful. Okay, I think I'm going to kick things off. We've got several attendees here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. My name is David Weesey. I'm serving in the capacity of room host. I imagine that this is not your first presentation at this point, but I do just want to familiarize you with a couple of the features that we have. If you look to the right of your screen and you click on the Files tab, our presenters have uploaded a copy of their PowerPoint, in case you'd like to follow along at home or refer to the files later on. We will also be using the chat feature if you have comments or questions for our presenters. We'll be monitoring that the best that we can during the presentation. And the presenters have also agreed to do their best to set aside some time at the end for live mic Q&A if you'd like to hop on camera and just like we're doing right now. All right, I am going to mute myself and turn off my camera during the presentation so as not to distract, but I am here, and if you're having technical issues and the like, feel free to let us know about them in chat, and I'll do anything I can to help troubleshoot. But I want to start by thanking Ken and Seth for our presenters today, and let me now turn it over to them.
Great, thank you, David. Thank you for your assistance. And thank you, everybody, for attending our session this afternoon. My name is Ken Kelch. I am the TESOL Programs Director at Alliant International University. We're housed in San Diego, but we have campuses up and down the state, but the TESOL program is in San Diego. And my co-presenter this afternoon is Seth Cervantes.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry? Oh,
that's it. Hello, everyone.
Oh, hi. Sorry. Seth is a recent graduate of our TESOL doctoral program, and he's an adjunct faculty at Alliant. So in keeping with the conference theme of resiliency, today we'd like to share an effective and relatively easy to implement approach to professional development, which promotes resiliency. There's a number of sessions I noticed throughout the conference that address the topic of resiliency. I went to one this morning, which was really good. It talked about how to develop resiliency in our ELL students in the online format and how teachers can help promote that. So with that theme in mind, today we'd like to talk to you about fostering resiliency through teacher collaborative dialogue. So if there was ever a time that we need resiliency, it's now. The impact of the coronavirus on our educational system has been really disruptive to our usual teaching and learning routines. And so what Seth and I would like to share with you today is teacher collaborative dialogues as a way for teachers to address the daily issues that they face in the lessons that they're delivering to their students and in their working with their colleagues in their institution. So as we go through the session today, we would like you to keep in mind that teacher collaborative dialogues go beyond just the current pandemic environment that we're in. And this is something that you can utilize anytime as a long-term approach to professional development. So in this session, we won't go into the need for professional development as educators. I think its benefits are well known and obvious. And so what we would like to do today is to focus in particular on teachers investigating what they can do in their own classrooms with their own students. And so to this end, we'd like to look at how can we assist teachers to articulate their own understandings of what they do and why they do what they do, and to explore the best way that they can maximize their students' learning. Because when teachers are able to articulate their beliefs in this way, we can put that under the umbrella term of reflective practice. And reflective practice, as you're probably aware, is a form of professional development. So teacher reflection can take a variety of forms. You might, for example, keep a diary or a journal of your teaching. You could observe your colleagues in the act of teaching, or maybe more likely you would be observed by a colleague or an administrator. When you attend a conference, such as this CATISL conference, and you reflect on how what you learned and what you were exposed to and experienced in this conference applies to you, those are all examples of reflective practice. So I'd like to call your attention to the quote on the slide here from Kathy Bailey. And this quote says that, when we engage in reflective practice with trusted colleagues in a collaborative approach to teaching, that can definitely promote professional development. So given then what we know about professional development and reflective practice, we would like to talk with you this afternoon in some depth about teacher collaborative dialogues. So teacher collaborative dialogue can be defined as a method of reflective practice which allows teachers to articulate their personal belief systems within the context of their teaching practice. So we're going to work on that work with that definition today, from that definition today. So I do want to give you a bit of a heads up that if you want to search for more information on this issue, you would like to read more about it in the literature, you will find that it can be variously described. So teacher collaborative dialogue is one way you'll see it described in the literature. You might also come across it described as critical friends, or a professional circle, or teacher support group, or a teacher study group. So, keep your eye out for those when you're looking to enhance your knowledge about this. And, there are a lot of benefits that derive from engaging in a teacher collaborative dialogue, or in short, when we want to think about teachers coming together as a group to discuss professional issues. So this type of professional development is teacher-centered, and it's a good way to inspire reflection among faculty members. It gives opportunities and stimulates ideas for experimentation in our own teaching. It provides an authentic learning experience for us. And, ultimately we hope that it motivates teachers to go beyond, their usual practice, go beyond the traditional boundaries, and to construct new learning and new meanings. And this really is the essence of professional growth and professional development. So I'd like to come back to this notion of resiliency, which is the theme of our conference this year. And so, even setting aside for a moment the pandemic and the disruption that has caused to us, one of the negatives that can be associated with teaching is a sense of isolation that can occur as teachers carry out, what they do with their students in private. So in other words, we come into the classroom and we close the door, both figuratively and literally, on the job that we have of teaching, and it's not an easy task that we do. And then when the lesson concludes and we open the door and we come back out into the common area of our school, we rarely talk with each other in a formal, sustained way about what we have done, what we do or what we need to do as teaching professionals. And, while this sense of isolation is one of the maybe usual characteristics of our profession of teaching, it certainly is amplified and magnified by the coronavirus shutdown when everything moved to online instruction. And so this isolation that we feel, can be magnified in the online modality. So when we're teaching online, we lose that sense of camaraderie and collegiality that we feel with each other around the office. And, we lose maybe those little moments of professional conversation that we have when we're standing around the photocopy machine or having lunch. And so, this teacher collaborative dialogue is one way to address that, because it's detrimental not only to us as teachers to be in this kind of professional isolation. It also is a negative to our students. It's a negative to, in fact, our institution or program as a whole. And so through this collaborative dialogue, we can address this kind of isolation and the negative consequences that come from it. We can mitigate those. So in short, much of what is needed to foster good teaching, to overcome the sense of isolation, can be generated by any faculty through continuing and thoughtful conversation. So why should teachers come together as a group to dialogue with each other? There are a lot of benefits that can derive from it. Doing this helps teachers to know that the challenges that they are facing in the classroom are not unique to themselves, and that in fact they are shared by their colleagues. Coming together to dialogue can help build confidence. And when we work together as a group, it helps to generate a feeling of belonging among the faculty, and it builds faculty cohesion and collegiality. And there are other benefits that derive from it. And in a couple of minutes, Seth is going to share his own experience with this, and you'll hear him talk about the benefits that he has found in this experience. So then you might be thinking about now, well, what do or what should teachers talk about when they come together for this kind of professional dialogue? And really, we can group the topics of our conversation into two broad or two basic categories. One would be philosophical issues, and the other would be practical issues. So by philosophical issues, we mean sort of high-level topics that are related to teaching and learning in general. For example, we might want to talk with each other about who we see ourselves as, what kind of image we hold for ourselves as a teacher. Or we might want to share stories about how we were inspired to enter the teaching profession or the TESOL profession. Maybe you want to talk with each other about where you see your career unfolding as you go forward, whatever stage you are in the TESOL profession. You could reflect on your own experience as a student or a language learner. Or we might want to have the chance to articulate with each other the philosophies and beliefs that we hold about teaching and learning in general. So these kinds of things I would classify under philosophical type of issues. And then the other topic category can be called practical issues. And so these are the day-to-day, lesson-to-lesson issues that teachers own schema as the audience here today to activate your schema for the information that Seth is going to talk about momentarily. I'd like you to think about, what happened to our TESOL profession back in March when the pandemic really took over our society, and all teaching and learning suddenly went online. And so in this kind of situation, there are a lot of issues that arise that we may want to talk about, things that are related to our own teaching school site. We might talk about how is attendance working now that we're online, and how do we monitor students' attendance and enforce students' attendance. Or, last week we were working with our textbook face-to-face with our students in class, and now we're on Zoom, for example, and how are we going to use our textbooks in the most optimal way with our students in the online format? How are we going to, collect and assess and, return and go over homework with our students? How are we evaluated as teachers now that we're teaching online? So these kinds of practical issues that come up in our teaching. And another thing might be what we term critical moments. You'll see that term in the literature as well. So these are, maybe successes that we have had in the classroom in the new online modality, or the challenges that we're facing. And, these are incidents that we can share with our colleagues. And so we can get feedback from them and hear how they have handled or might handle a similar type of experience. And so before we go any further, I would just like to point out the important role that administrators play in having a successful teacher collaborative dialogue. Administrators are critical throughout the process. So in terms of designing how this teacher group is going to work, what topics will be discussed, how it will be structured, and then implementing it. How will it be scheduled, and who will be in the group, and how will it be structured, from beginning to end? How will we keep this going over time? So it's not just a one-shot, meeting that we have. It's something that we want to maintain and do with some kind of regularity. And then how will the benefits, or the challenges or the adjustments that need to be made on this dialogue group, the administrator can be responsible for monitoring that and helping to guide it so it unfolds in the most effective and efficient way. And so this kind of active support and participation from administrators communicates, and really it demonstrates to the faculty the importance not just of the dialogue group, but of professional growth and professional development as a whole. So now, having shared this background about teacher collaborative dialogue with you, I am going to turn this over to my colleague, Seth, and he's going to share with you a real-world example of a teacher collaborative dialogue. So with that, Seth, the floor is yours.
All right. Hello, everyone. As Ken said, my name is Seth, and the purpose of my part is to share with you my experience going online because of COVID. And I hope through my story and through sharing my experience that you can see how collaborative dialogues, were used to overcome problems that we as teachers had to address, and how it also led to innovations, things or methods or techniques in teaching that maybe for me I hadn't thought of. All right, so now with a little bit of background about where I was teaching at a large university in Southern California. I was teaching students who were accepted to graduate schools, who were accepted to a graduate school at the university, but still needed to improve their English. So all of them were university graduates already. All right, so here's my story. So in mid-March of this year, teachers at my university were informed that we were going to go online for a 3-day period. And the purpose of the 3-day as to get ready in case the school went totally online. And so it was basically a training period where they wanted to check, okay, do the teachers know how to use Zoom, and do the students know how to use Zoom? Can they access it? So the university, so this was university-wide, so they wanted to make sure that everyone was prepared in case everything went online. And before the 3-day period ended, all the teachers were informed that, no, we're going to go online until March. And then, not March, I'm sorry, April, mid-April. And then mid-April became, no, it's the entire semester. So it became obvious that we were all going to have to use Zoom for the remaining semester. So the problem was, okay, well, what do we do? This is all new. I mean, how do we use Zoom? What is Zoom? Where did it come from? So we were a little bit nervous. What do we do? So uh, so the university and the department where I was working in, they provided support. Okay, and so this is how I saw it. There was 3 levels. The first level was university wide. The second level was department wide, and then the third was class wide. So it starts from the broad to the very narrow, and you can even go a 4th level, which is more teacher to teacher. Okay, but the three top levels were the ones that were more formal, that there was scheduled meetings. Okay, Dr. Kelch, could you please move to the next slide? All right, so for the department-wide meetings, these were meetings with the whole department, like everyone, all the ESL teachers in the program were meeting together. And these were to discuss, okay, to give us information. For example, the university is offering training courses, online training courses through Zoom, where we could learn how to use Zoom. And so they were set up at different times of day. So the university was providing everyone with training, but it wasn't mandatory. But also at these meetings, information was given out mostly through the director and other supervisors. And so they were first addressing, they would address issues that were fielded from the teachers, but also they said, okay, these are the policies. Okay, for example, like how are we going to take attendance? For example, we were told that they have to have their videos on. And then how ideas on how to use breakaway rooms, suggestions such as making sure everyone is on mute. So these are all things that we weren't really aware of, or we didn't really think of, but these are things that that at a department level they were saying, okay, these are best practices. But again, there were other practices that were developing among other teachers. And so while we were having our department meetings, the director or whoever was leading the Zoom group would say, okay, now are there any issues that you would like? So they would open the floor, and one teacher would say, yes, I'm having issues with recording in breakaway rooms. And then sure enough, one teacher or a few teachers would address that question. So along the way, either one of the supervisors or one of the teachers said, well, we're going to have, why don't we have a shared Google Doc where someone would, if you want, you could type in a question or a problem, and then whoever's reading it could respond to it. So something like a message board that you would see on the outside, but this is more for the instructors. I myself didn't use it, but I was aware of that resource. There were also classes, informal classes that were set up on Blackboard for teachers to sign up on, where they could learn other skills related to Zoom or Blackboard. So this was at the department level. Now at a lower level, this was so we have department level, and Dr. Kelch, can you go back to the other slide real quick? Right. So department level. Okay, yeah. So class-wide level. Yeah, if you can go back. So at the class-wide level, there were this, and again, this is all formal. This was set up, so it was mandatory attendance that the department would set up meetings with classes. So if I taught, let's for example, English 1 class at this level, all English 1 teachers would meet together and talk about materials, would talk about testing, because testing became a very big issue. So how can we keep test security and prevent cheating when everyone is using their smartphone? So these are dialogues that we had, and so it wasn't something, especially at the test level, that from the top on down, it was just teachers coming up with different ideas on how do we address this issue. And what was really nice is that all the teachers had 10, 20 years experience, so everyone had a good idea to share. So those were always productive. And also, when we use Zoom through the department meeting or through the class-wide meetings, there was always side dialogues. So, someone would answer a question and they would answer it, but let's say I want more detail, so I would IM, like a little chat, that teacher, and then they would IM me back. And so we were having a private conversation while the main discussion was going on. And so that was also a feature that emerged while, it just emerged kind of naturally while we were having these meetings. But it was very different from what I'm used to. So at the university, we have like an open office where we could talk with each other. So we didn't have that. And so Dr. Kelch mentioned a little bit about the isolation, right, that we're feeling. And so to combat that, one teacher, I don't remember who it was, set up it's called a Zoom happy hour, where all the teachers met together and they would have their drink and maybe have their dog with them and just casually talk. And through these casual talks, they would talk about anything, but as teachers, we're going to talk about teaching, right? And so ideas came through that as well. And so at the very end, this is one issue. I'm responsible for teaching service learning classes. And if anyone has taught a service learning class, this course takes a lot of planning, because you have to go out in the community, make phone calls, and set up and set everything up for the students so that they can do their volunteer activities, but also materials. And when COVID came, we still had 5 weeks left of class. And I was like, okay, well, how am I going to do my service learning classes? They can't go out. I can't require that they go out and do their volunteer service. And I asked the question during one of the meetings. I think it was a department-wide meeting, and I said, well, how am I going to teach this service learning class now? What do I do? And then I think it was the associate director said, well, let me come back to you. And then a few days later, the associate director said, okay, have you heard of virtual volunteering? Here are 3 websites. And he was able to get a student assistant to also do research on that. So that opportunity, through these dialogues on Zoom, I was able to get help. And from that initial help, I was able to learn about virtual volunteering, which I had no idea existed. And I was able to learn new skills. And so it's not just the idea that, even though this is very challenging, but at the same time, we're innovating. We're learning new skills. We're improving on our teaching. So when we do go back to on-site, we're going to use the tools that we learned in this time, because these are innovations. This is making the teaching better. And I would have to also think that, wow, this going on Zoom helped me also get more ideas, learn more skills. And so that was one positive through all this negativity. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so one thing I also want to talk about, which also is, it's dialogue, but it's an important dialogue that we should have is that we need emotional support. As teachers, we live in a very good and bad times where we're wondering, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to find my next job? Because student populations are declining. We were thinking, are they going to be able to get their visas? Are they going to, if we don't teach, are we going to have to teach part on time? I mean, part off-site and part on-site? How is this going to work? Student populations are going down, and so we need to talk to each other about these issues, encourage each other. And so that's something I thought, because I was quite worried as well, about my next job. And I'm sure other teachers were as well. So that's also an emerging idea that I wanted to share with you, that we were talking about this. Like, okay, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to make it? How are we going to get enough money to pay for rent? So I think that's something that that should have been that I did, but also I hope others talked about as well. So the next thing is learn from each other and best practices for Zoom and Blackboard. So it doesn't matter Blackboard or Canvas. I remember one issue that I had is I forgot to take attendance, and I asked, okay, well, I'm sorry, how am I going to take attendance because I forgot to do it? It's something small, but it happens. And so someone said, hey, well, on Zoom, you can go and you can check, because it keeps a record of who signed on and how long they were signed on for. And so that's something I learned. So again, as problems emerge, either you can ask someone for help, or you can just say, I don't care. I'm just going to lie and not take my attention and just say whatever. Okay. But again, so asking for help is very important, because we all need it, especially when we go into something new and unknown, like we did in mid-March. Again, these are just some issues that we had. So what happens if a student has connectivity problems? So a lot of my students, they moved back to China, and some of their connectivity issues, they had connectivity issues, or even in the university dorms there were connectivity issues. And so we thought about that. So and we said, okay, teachers came together, they decided, well, if they are connectivity issues, that's not the students problem, but one thing that we can provide, Zoom has video. So the policy was, we record our lessons and then we put the video recording on the link. Okay, and other teachers came up with ideas that, okay, they're all Chinese students, so they probably have WeChat. So let's get WeChat together, make sure, put like a classroom group, and if someone is missing, either the teacher or, like for me, if someone was having issue, if someone was not in the class, I would say, well, Jack, he's not here. Can someone please WeChat, send him a message in WeChat and tell them to send me a message, or they would send me a message and then I could learn about their issues, and they say, okay, well, why don't you try using your phone? Okay, so because I think you can call a number and get online and get on Zoom as well. So, as problems emerged, we asked for help, or we resolve the problem on our own, but we share that information with others. Okay, and also, how can students give individual or group presentations? That's an issue. I said, so well, how am I going to do this? Through Zoom. How do we let students share their PowerPoint? What do you do? So all of this stuff, solutions, ideas emerge through not classroom dialogue, through teacher dialogue at the department level, so university-wide level. University-wide is more big and broad, and training and policy. At the department level, it gets a little bit more narrow, where we're sharing more ideas. In classroom, it gets more detailed. So at all three levels, especially at the department and at the classroom level, teachers were asking questions, and in each question, someone had a solution. And so that was really nice, and there were so many opportunities where we could get involved as well. We're doing, and this is all professional development as well. Could you do the next slide? So these are all, it says feedback from teachers on benefits of teacher collaborative dialogue. So again, you remain current in the field of language teaching, exposure to a variety of teaching styles, lessen the feeling of professional isolation. And this is very important because I was once told that teaching is like a carton of eggs. Once we close those doors, we kind of keep it all, protected and sealed. But we have to open up and say, okay, well, this is what we're doing in the classroom, and this is how we're using technology, and these are ideas, and this is also an aside of something I learned. A new innovation is I was at the beginning of the semester, I had two MA TESOL students who I was mentoring, and they would go to my class each week. And towards the end, they had to do they had to actually teach a class. But then, okay, how are we going to do this online? And they came up with a wonderful lesson using, I forgot the name of the technology, but they would have a Post-its where they would post that they would put digital posts, and that's the way they would share ideas. And it was so wonderful with Zoom, because everyone because I would share the screen and they would post it. And so I was learning as well from the teacher, from the students the MA students that I was mentoring. It says opportunity to share in programmatic development, provided a way to relieve professional tension, brought intellectual stimulation, improved ability in non-content aspects of teaching, such as classroom management. That is very important. How do we manage a class online? How do we manage a class off-site? When we're on-site, so these were all skills, ideas that we had to learn, and we're developing these these best practices that emerge through trial and error, but we're learning from each other as well. And so the last one served as an overall catalyst for change and innovation. I like the idea of innovation, because as teachers, we're always innovating. We're not just taking a technology, but we're using it in a unique way to meet the needs of our students, and to help students achieve the objectives of the course. And so one innovation was, for me, was virtual volunteering. And so moving forward, when I teach a service learning class, I am going to include a virtual volunteering component. And so these are skills that I'm not only learning, but I'm using what I know and through my experience to make new innovations. And I want to share those with others as well. All right, Dr. Kelch, that's about it for my part.
Yeah, thank you, Seth, for sharing. I think a personal story is always the best teacher. So glad to hear that. I'm sure our attendees are as well. And I never heard the carton of egg analogy before, so I like that. So to conclude this afternoon, then, we would like to encourage you to consider implementing teacher collaborative dialogue, not only as a way to help you and your colleagues navigate this new educational world, but also long-term going forward, when we return to in-person teaching as a way to engage in professional growth opportunities. So to help you kind of navigate this, what might be a new way of teacher learning for you, we would ask you to consider these 4 points here. So, I think the first thing you have to think about is, to what extent am I motivated to engage in reflective practice? We're all very busy as teachers, and so it's not always easy to take the time to reflect. So you need to decide, is this something that you can do and want to do? And then, does this approach appeal to me enough to explore it further? As I said before, there are multiple ways to reflect. We think this collaborative dialogue is a really, really good way. So you need to think about whether this sounds interesting and appealing to you. And if it does, you can certainly email me or Seth. Our emails are on the final slide of this PowerPoint deck. You can do literature search, as I mentioned earlier, on this area. And then consider, from whom in my institution do I need to enlist support in the development of teacher collaborative dialogue. So remember the importance of administration, and it's not something you can do by yourself. So who would help you to put this into practice? And then finally, what action do I need to take to actually do it, design it, and get it up and running? What are those concrete steps? What other people are going to help me to do that? So that is our presentation for today. I'm going to close this screen, and we do have about 4 minutes, so we'll see if there's any questions from people, or maybe something in the chat box. So let's see if I can navigate my way back here. Okay, there I am. So,
and yeah, I can give microphone and speaker access to anyone who might have a question for our presenters today. And feel free to raise your hand or just indicate by chat that you would like to do so.
Okay, and if not, then we do appreciate you joining us for our session. And David explained that there is our slide deck here under the Files tab. You can download that, you can access it, and find the contact information for myself and for Seth. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions or would like to discuss further.
Ken, Seth, thank you both for sharing your expertise and ideas with us today.
Thank you, David, for your help. Thank you, attendees.
I think there's one person that has a question that's raising
hand. You see something? Okay. Do you see a hand up?
Oh, yep. Very good. Okay. Berkir, I'm going to invite you to speak here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of the last minute. I put my question in the questions box, but so I think you couldn't see.
Oh, there it is.
So I just want to ask, because I'm a pretty new ESL teacher, so I'm not part of I'm part of literacy services, part of Riverside Literacy Services. So I'm volunteering at this point, and I'm hoping to, get my MA in TESOL or EDD in TESOL, and but the COVID came and everything is shut down. So I'm doing virtual classes now and conversation class, but we're really small. We're trying to collaborate with each other, but we're all volunteering. So, so what kind of, other ways, other platforms that you can, especially new teachers who are not part of institutions or colleges or universities, can do?
So you might, I'm not sure I understand your situation exactly, but you might check with the person who heads the volunteer center and see if that individual would like to help you connect with the other volunteers to see if maybe something like Seth had mentioned, they did it. Did you call it a happy hour, Seth? Where it's something that maybe could take place on a Friday afternoon or a Friday evening where people could join and discuss issues that they're facing. And so if you're not in quite a structured environment, you might try to enlist the help of someone at that tutoring center or volunteer center to reach out to people. I'm also thinking, you said you're not in a master's program, or you were in a master's program?
Yes, actually, Dr. Katja, yesterday I joined Aligned International program, and I talked to I can't remember her name, but we had a good conversation, and so I'm actually, that's another thing, because like you said, now this job market is maybe getting smaller and really so much more competitive in Southern California. And I will be moving into San Diego next summer. So it's kind of MA in TESOL or EDD in TESOL. So EDD, I didn't even know there's an EDD program. So when I was actually looking for a MA in TESOL, and she told me about your EDD in TESOL. And I want to be a teacher in community colleges. I want to grow up in this career. It's my second career, so I already have an MBA and many years of experience in corporations. But I'm been teaching for last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of confused now. Like, I don't know which one is the right. EDD has a higher name, but is it the right program?
Right. So those issues, I think, why don't you email me on those, and you and I can have a conversation. As far as meeting up with other teachers and talking, I think through the volunteer center where you are, or for anybody out there who's in a master's program, you could ask your faculty members to help the students come together as a group, maybe with or without faculty, to kind of lead the dialogue group. So faculty might fill the place of a site administrator, in a teaching school. So I think you would look for people who are with you in where you work, or where you volunteer, or where you go to school, to get those opportunities, particularly in an online program or online environment, because that isolation is so much higher. To ask for help, ask for assistance in putting together. You heard Seth talk about how beneficial the administration was at his institution.
Okay.
There's a note that popped up, says 4:30. There's something else happening, so we want to be mindful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you, and good luck.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for
send me an
presenting.
email, and you and I can talk.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Okay. Bye-bye.
I'd also just like to plug the networking function that we have as part of the Invent platform. Berkeley, for anyone else who's interested in meeting teachers in a similar context, good way to reach out and make connections there.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. We found a little bit over time.